Hey, this is one of my favorite ocean-themed junk journals that I've made. It was kind of started with some leftover scraps from a Maine project that I did for an island-themed binder book. And this one sort of just formed from all the leftovers I had that matched each other in color. So I really enjoyed making the cover for this one using just regular board and some scrapbook paper and K & Company papers like the shell and this shell here, and then these acetate borders, I think they were. And then the background here is Studio 112 paper, which I used Tim Holtz Distress on. Made the edges rough and then inked them with vintage photo. Same goes for the spine part here. I did some rough work to make it kind of feel like a seashell basket. But that's the side. Here's the back, and I use this paper that kind of reminds me of sea foam, even though it has little flowers in it and these little specklies. And then I sealed everything with liquid varnish except for these. These were glued on last because vellum, I think it was actually vellum. Vellum resists Liquitex varnish, so you don't need to varnish those. But on the inside, I chose this woven wicker kind of paper because the whole basket theme on a beach is what I was going for. And I named this book Seaside Apothecary because it kind of has a story connected to it, and also because of the names that were on these paint color sample papers. So I added this flip out here using a rub-on from, what do you call it, Smash. And it flips out like this. And then there is the Perfect Paradise paint thing that I inked the edges of, and I also used a postcard tag to make that. And in this pocket was actually made from scraps of cardboard that I had lying around, but I have this flip out, you can see flip out accordion styled card. So there's these names on it. I also used leftover vellum strip here, but there's fountain foam, there's wildlife, there's cottage charm, and then there's misty dreams. So yeah, I just put together random pieces to make it. And then in here, this pocket flips open, and there is a lot of inking here, and it's kind of meant to look like old paper, and I used parchment, then stamped the corners. So it too is a pocket, and then here's this spot with made from a tissue box, half of a tissue box with little bubbles and kind of seaweed pattern on it. But in here, I have these two little cards that open up like this and are inked on the inside. And I guess this one says dried mint and botanical bath, and this one Niagara blue, and also vintage bazaar. But one of the reasons I named this book Seaside Apothecary is because of the card that says dried mint, and also a card that says apothecary jar, which I'll be getting to in a moment. But let's go in there. This flips down, and within here you can see that there is a tuck slot here, and you might not be able to see it, but there's a light blue stamping of a shell here. I had to kind of extend the thing. So within my tuck spot there is the apothecary jar card, and then there is this Studio 112 paper postcard that came from a paper pack I've been using, and I backed it with some cardstock. And then there is this tissue box tab flip out with inked edges and some vellum covering up the symbol. It opens up like that, and then it closes, and I just kind of distressed it here and there and made it look old. But a quick history, I'm going to get into in a brief moment. These go back in here, and they kind of just slide under that strip there. Maybe. Now you might wonder what these are about. I made these canning jar cards, sort of, using some plastic, StazOn ink, new canning jar stamps, some collaging and paint, and also some other techniques to make something that's somewhat of a shaker, a little peppercorn shaker with herbs in a jar. The reason why I made these is because there's a story connected to the name of Seaside Apothecary, and the story is connected to a story that I'm currently kind of writing, and one of the regions in that story is a seaside or a water themed village, and in that village there's a guy named Dorian who has an apothecary, and he works there, and then he's friends with this other woman who's a medic who also has a chowder shack, and the two just they're friends. And so she goes to his apothecary to get herbs for her chowder, and she also shares her chowder with him occasionally. So that's what this represents. This represents her chowder, this represents his herbs, and it just kind of reminds me of the story, so I put them in there, even though this kind of looks unappetizing maybe to some. It wasn't intentional, but it happened by accident. So here's the other side to that. It's just a curved page. I used some sandy paper here, and I did some inking and made this other page that flips down, and then I did this little bag. I made it using some hand sewing, or actually machine sewn, onto a plastic bag that came from, I think, a Krispy Kreme donuts. Yeah, it had a nice texture. And I stamped it using StazOn ink and some small dollar pack stamps. And, oops, on the inside I made some cards using scraps of paper and cardstock. And I love this one because they've got these nice colors, and I added these little gems to them. Added a little pearl here, and then it opens up like that. And this one actually has an extra part that flips out. Not all of them have it. There's this one that I added some stamping to and a gem, and then a green pearl to the back. And then it opens up and it's inked on the inside. And then I have this one, which has a gem on the back and a gem right here, and it opens up all the same. So I really like the colors of these ones. They make me very happy, and they just slip inside this plastic bag, which might be kind of difficult to get them back into because it's floppy. I'm gonna get back to it. Yeah, maybe. Okay. This one I did a window effect. It's made of paint chips again. Distant Valley, Sparkling Lake, Tropical Bay, and on the other side you can see the other people in there, and it says Liquid Jade and Shady Palm and Belgrove Spruce. But the way this works is that it's just a hollow pocket with two sides, so the windows show. And then I made a card and placed pictures where the windows are so that they show through. That's how that works. And I did the edges, and I did it so it kind of looks like a ship with people looking out the windows, and it has to do with travel. That's why there's a tape with cameras on it. And there's this flip out here with another technique in that window. Winter in Paris is what it says. So this flips out here. It's kind of like a foggy sea color here, and then I added this tiny little place to tuck a photo under, and I did that too, and that flips back down. And then the other side with pictures that kind of match the name. There's Seafoam Storm and Smoke Smoke Infusion, yeah. This is the top of a tissue box, which I think was for something like Sand and Sea, I think is what the design pattern was called, but on the inside I added 2 cards, and I also covered back with security envelope that looks like ocean waves, so my 2 cards with their backs. So, very bright blues and gray blues, but just go with it, and then they slip back in there. And then on the other side, there is more of that paint stuff covering up pictures, and then I have this tuck spot here, which is different, and I inked up more of the distressed areas. You can see it's free floating. There's a bubble, big bubble over there. But inside I added a another one of those cards, and I added this card, or sort of. I also decorated the edges with small scraps, and I did this card, and then I made this tiny little envelope from leftovers, and inside I put these tiny little cards. This one actually opens up right here, and it uses many of the tiny scraps, so I like that. I just added it in because I like little things. And you take all those and they kind of go back in pretty simply. It's pretty straightforward. Just tuck it into the top here, stick it in, and you're on your way. That's what it looks like with this stuff in there. More of that sandy looking paper. It's white from Stampin' Up, and then there's the rest of the tissue box, and then you get to this part, which gets kind of fun. It is from a ginger ale box from Trader Joe's, and it opens up like this first. So there's a spot for a picture, and then there is a stamp of a seashell, and I used part of the top of the box. It's got little anchors on it. I love the way that looks. I'm not sure if you can see it either, but that's the way it looks. And then I gave it this paint chip thing that kind of folds about. It can fold in half, but I kind of just don't do that because it causes bulk, so I just stuck it in as a actual thick card. And that closes, and then it flips over, and you get to see here are more spots. I have some leftover things here for turning into a tab or whatever else. I also have this little card here made from paint chips, and this opens up as a little tiny book. And then I have one large card backed with some parchment paper, and it says Lagoon Reflection on it. And then I also used paint chips to make a pocket here. And here's where I made a flip out using the box tab as a closure. And this flips up, and it serves the envelope to a pocket. So this is the pocket. And I made this, and I also made this using scraps. I made this card. And then those just slip back into there, and then this closes down and shuts. And then the back here is the ginger whale with its pretty picture, and it had a little bit of damage, but I kind of thought that was neat, and I inked it up to make it look more vintagey. So that's the book, and it has 4 sections in total, and yeah, makes me happy to look at.